Good morning. Today I will talk about the final form of Vexas, or the next form at least. So I am not classically trained in any way, so there's a lot of stuff, basic stuff that I don't know about as far as electronics design and circuit design goes. So there's a lot of times where I'm just like, hey, maybe I'll just copy what these guys do. You see lots of people doing a thing and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that thing. But you have to understand the rules before you break the rules. You have to know why the rules are in place. And I didn't know why the rules were in place, so I just kind of was like, this seems like the right thing to do, and I'm going to do this. So a lot of my leads on Vexas were exposed, and a little bit, it was just kind of bare. It wasn't really covered, and I would have restarts, and I was like, my code must be weak. And for any of the new viewers, Vexas is a handheld computer device that does mostly PDA stuff. So it has a QWERTY keyboard built into it, and one level of layering. So that's pretty cool. So you can get numbers. But it's primarily for my own use in keeping track of time and keeping track of notes. So you pick it up, you press, there's quick buttons to get to the timers and to the notes so that you can jot stuff down real quick. They're tactile 6mm buttons so that you don't even have to look at it. You can touch type on it very easily. And it's been working really well for, I'll have to look, but I guess like a couple years at this point. And as time goes on, I keep running into software improvements and hardware improvements. So I have, over these years, improved the hardware layout a lot, I guess. I guess it must be, because I would have restarts. I would have restarts, and I thought it was because of the software. And then I started to realize that it was when I took it out of my pocket, or touched it, or set it on a desk or something like that, that I wasn't like jarring it or shaking it, or I wasn't doing anything with it. It was just experiencing some kind of high voltage or low voltage event, a static shock, ESD or something like that, that was causing it to reset. Overwhelm the reset pin. I didn't think about that, but shorting out the reset pin to ground is probably a good idea. I don't know. So when I started experiencing that, I started messing around with other designs and changing around the circuit board. And I definitely have more iterations of the Vexas circuit board than any other circuit board I've got. And the reason all of my projects have Latin names, so Vexas is something that vexes you, it bothers you. So the idea was that I would have something that would keep time for me, allow me to receive alarms, annoy me until I deal with the alarm, and then I can snooze the alarm. So I can snooze it for a variable amount of time, snooze it for 5 minutes or snooze it for 30 minutes easily. And it also counts up the amount of time that it's been going off. So you know how long, if you get back and you left it somewhere and it's been going off, you're like, oh, that alarm, it's late. How late is the alarm? And it'll tell you exactly how many minutes it's been going off for. So it runs on a ESP32. It's like a little kit board from Heltec. So it's got a built-in OLED and charging circuit and serial interface. So it's pretty complete. That was the other thing. I've shorted out a number of them and killed a number of them. Probably like 6 at this point. and they're not exactly cheap. They're 20 bucks a piece, so I try to be extra careful with them. And it's gotten to the point lately that I've also physically damaged a lot of them just by carrying them around in my pocket. So I've been changing the case and everything so that it's a little bit more protective of the thing. So the ESP32 is a little bit overkill. It's actually a full LoRa board, so technically it can do the LoRa stuff, but right now I'm not doing anything with it. I'm not even doing anything wireless with it. I'm just taking advantage of the 8 megabytes of flash space and the bunch of SRAM that it comes with. Yeah, it's a quick board, and the OLED works really well. It does get a little bit of burn-in, but I like its visibility in different lighting conditions. So the latest version, I put in a whole bunch of shielding, and I guess it's just shielding, yeah. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Maybe I can't think right now. Very tired. And since I put in that shielding and more grounding plates around it, it's been solid. The last version, I set up like a ground plane, and then I set up a positive plane on the other side to give it some, minor bit of capacitance. And then I actually don't think that the kit board, the Heltec ESP32 board, is very well shielded. I'm actually pretty sure it's not well shielded. So I had some weird feedback issues, I guess, on the last version. And I was like, well, what if I make this an entire ground plane? So I went through and cut all the traces and then soldered connections across and made double ground planes on it, and then connected that, and then I had no problems with it. And I was trying to count, at that point I was like counting the restarts to see how many restarts I was getting with it, just handling it, carrying it around from place to place, day to day, charging it at different locations and all that. And at that point I went about a month with one restart, and like it was really staticky, and I was reaching in my pocket, and I knew this was like peak electrostatic discharge territory. So when it restarted, I was only a little bit surprised. But I was looking at the board, and I was like, what was exposed? What was exposed directly, or pretty much, or almost exactly to the chip? And there was one connection for serial. I was like, maybe it was that. So on this version, I've got everything closed up. I've got everything covered. I've got there's a few spots that are technically not covered, but I'll worry about those when they become a problem. But I think it was on the top, so I didn't put any header pins in those areas, and I even hot glued over all the pads that were even slightly exposed, so that fishing around with it in my pocket, I still am not going to run into an instance where I shouldn't hit any sensitive parts with any kind of static. Of course, in the beginning, everything was so exposed, I would be like fishing around for it with my keys in my pocket, and I was like, I think my keys might have shorted the power to ground, perhaps. Yeah. I was just like, hey, it'll be fine. And then this is it's like, the keyboard pretty much sits there, and I might pick it up and carry it to the car and put it down, and then pick it up and carry it into work and put it down. But the Vexas just goes everywhere in every pocket and gets grabbed in weird scenarios at weird times. I pull it out of my pocket and it's upside down and backwards, so I'm reaching around in spots that I wouldn't normally reach around in, and it's just, it gets the worst treatment essentially. So I need it to be extra resilient. So it wasn't until I got this faceplate on top of it and the battery pack on the back of it that I started to realize that I could do something like this, where the vertical, where the faceplate is level with the keyboard. So I've I have 3D printed a top keyboard for it. Just some 3D printed buttons that sit on top, and then you press those and they activate instead of actually pushing the bare 6mm buttons, which is also good because we're still, you know, the case is I don't know what the case is on that. I don't think the case can't be grounded. I don't know what it is. I think it's just a regular case. It's kind of weird that it's not grounded out, but maybe that is kind of weird. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. I had there's buttons on the back of it, and those buttons were not grounded originally in one of the earlier designs. And whenever I touched the I don't know what you call it, the mount, I guess, for those buttons, because they had a steel mount that went around the button, and then there were buttons and then 2 leads coming out. So the 2 leads went to, obviously, to the connections, and then the mounts were not grounded. They were just hanging out. They were independent. And whenever I would touch those independent connections, it would reset in those conditions, those certain conditions. So I grounded them out, and now they're a lot better. And I just realized that all the other buttons sitting on top here, these frames, I guess it's just plates though. They're just kind of sitting on top. The rest is plastic. Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, I guess it's fine. It does look really ugly though, because of all that, all of the hot glue on there. But to make a faceplate that would be flush with the screen, the display, with a little hole opening for it, and then opening for a charging port on the side, and then just have that come out with the 3D printed button sitting on top of it, that'd be really something. Also, the potential for doing battery swaps, which is something that I've been planning for a bit. I had I think it was a 150 milliamp hour battery. So that's about right. I don't know. I felt like it was more than 150. I'm almost certain it was more. It's probably closer to 300 or something. That would be 50 times 500. That's probably closer. Yeah, and it sat right here in this empty area right here. So it was able to have like a small battery area. And then that small battery was fine. It lasted about 10 hours. It wasn't great. 10 hours is a good number, but if it had 50% more, that would have covered a lot of just regular time throughout the day, because, you know, you get to a desk and you sit down and you charge it and it doesn't really move from there. It's not a big deal. Or you charge it overnight. But 10 hours doesn't get you an overnight charge. Also, if you're going to be using it to wake up as an alarm clock, then you don't get, you know, it has to be charging in the position away from or by your bed. That's the other thing, is not using a phone. Because the phone is just, well, it's a mess. It's a mess of wills, a mess of intentions. It's a mess of owners is what it is. There's too many people who want too many things out of the phone for you to step in and be like, hey, can you be an alarm clock for me? All of my annoyance has been me trying to get a cell phone to work in this position and then getting let down. You know, the alarm clock works great for 6 months, and then for whatever reason it just happens to fail one day, one morning, and it's like, well, I can't trust that now. Like, what's the point then? And, you know, I still don't like cell phones, so I mean, I can't record these vlags on Vexas yet. Maybe soon. That was rough. But I wanted something that was simple, that didn't have all the layers of software and complication and nonsense, and, you know, it's like, yeah, record some notes and do some countdown timers for me, and maybe even be an alarm clock. it's like, yeah, okay, what if I give you 10 million CPU cycles and, 64 gigabytes? It's just all overkill. And with all that spare time and space and processing power, there's other software in there going, hey, let's do this now. Hey, what about this? Hey, why aren't we doing that now? You, the owner, are an afterthought. So I wanted something simple, and Vexas is very simple. Plus, I built it from the ground up, so I get to build it exactly to my specifications. So it's kind of a big selling point.